Hey everybody, hope you are all doing very well out there. In this video, I wanted to take some steps towards the direction of getting a little bit deeper into the discussion of ethics and, spiritual and magical practices and mystical practices. But I don't think we can properly go into the discussion of ethics, certainly not in a fair way, without addressing the phenomena that is, well, scrupulosity. Sorry, I had a Persephone hair wedged in my glasses. So what is scrupulosity, and why do we need to be more aware of it, more mindful of it, especially when we are on the path? And this could also be very helpful for those of you that might be observing some habits with yourself when it comes to the discussion or the approach to your own morals and ethics, whether or not they are actually informed by, say, a spiritual code of ethics or a spiritual code of morals, or something personal or something societal, whatever, family traditions, upbringing, it doesn't matter. So for those of you who are not familiar with the term scrupulosity, scrupulosity is kind of an interesting let's just say, focus or minor major that is commonly associated with obsessive compulsive disorder. And for those of you who have been watching me for a while, I have always been very open about my OCD. And for those of you who did not know, yes, I do have clinical OCD. Scrupulosity sometimes gets lumped in as sort of an OCD experience for certain people. But scrupulosity is not reserved or trademarked by OCD. It can happen to anybody, right? It can be provoked by trauma. It could be provoked by, again, mental conditioning. It can come up in all kinds of different ways. But when it comes to where people started to notice it the most, or how it behaves or how it presents, it does carry a lot of OCD features. And so enter stage Nico. Whether you have OCD or not, scrupulosity is something that you might want to be keeping an eye out for. When we see scrupulosity present in a person, we often see an issue that can look a lot like self-flagellation, this constant effort to feel pure or feel deserving or feel perfect all the time. Not necessarily from an ego perspective, not I am better than you, or I am superior, or I am the Messiah, or anything along those lines. It's not a God complex, but is really more about working to feel as though one is worthy or one is deserving of whatever it is they feel that they need to be morally or ethically perfect for. What's interesting about this is that they don't necessarily project that onto other people. People who live with a form of scrupulosity might actually find that they are more tolerant, more accepting, or more lenient, I guess you could say, when it comes to the moral or ethical slights of others. But when it comes to the self, there is this constant feeling of, how do I deal with my moral and ethical pollution, right? It's a self-inflicted purism that can be extremely damaging, not only to the psyche, your relationships, your own relationship with your own path, but it can also prevent you from allowing yourself to have a life that is better than what you have decided you truly deserve versus maybe what you really want. And the way scrupulosity forms in a person, in a lot of ways, it does all come back to trauma to a certain degree, at least when scrupulosity shows up. Now, in cases with OCD itself, again, this is not just for OCD people, but OCD is there is a huge genetic component with people with OCD. OCD people, it's in your genes. It's an electrical issue that kind of goes on in your brain. If certain things happen in the course of a person's life, especially at a young age, those genes can activate and suddenly you've got an OCD kid. And again, that can have to do with trauma, instability, a lot of dysregulation and chaos and discord in the home, etc., etc. But scrupulosity can come in where a a subject of deep personal import for a sense of security, a sense of maybe in deserving, a sense of self-preservation, a sense of, care or self-love, can sometimes create, again, those kinds of feelings. And that's why it's like sometimes you see a person living with that who has OCD and a person living with that who doesn't have OCD. When you have an issue with scrupulosity, you need to be very careful about what you are taking in as moral and ethical rules, fairness, and equivalent exchange. When we talk about things like equivalent exchange, and I'll bring that up again in the next ethics video, remember, everything has to be fair. Fairness is the true law of the universe, right? When it comes to energetic exchanges and balance. And so when we talk about things like karma, when we talk about things like rewards and consequences and vibrational developments that are portioned out by the cosmos, it has to do with matching vibrations, keeping balance, and equivalent exchange. And all of these things are actually very neutral, right? They are divinely neutral. It can be very tempting, especially if a person has perhaps a background belief in some kind of cosmic middle manager out there deciding and judging and commanding. But when you have a bit of scrupulosity working in your system, or working in your code of ethics, or working in your psychology around ethics or morals or your spiritual compass, it can sometimes mess with you. And you may put yourself in a situation where you are tormented by your own conditioning, your own programs to flog yourself for things that you would not flog other people for. You might flog yourself, so to speak, or seek to immediately amend or correct things that, other people might actually forgive, but you would not forgive yourself for. And you may also allow yourself to be steered, controlled, or blackmailed by yourself or by others for a sense of relief or reward from that torment. And the reason I think this is important to think about and contemplate as we go through the discussion of spiritual ethics and moral ethics is because a lot of unethical treatment in the name of spirituality, in the name of moral correctness, in the name of ethics occurs, right? When it comes to human beings. Scrupulosity can manifest when you are brought up in an organized religion where you are extremely aware of the fact that there is nothing you can do to actually ever be perfect or acceptable even, or that, whatever you do may have scarred, polluted, or condemned you for life. Scrupulosity can also show up, though, in non-religious situations where you may have a lot of trauma, either PTSD or complex post-traumatic stress, around situations where perhaps you were disproportionately punished, disproportionately programmed, or had to suffer the collateral effect of the reactive tendencies of a person around you, whether it was a caregiver, a partner, a parent, and when you're in that kind of situation where you are overly involved in the state of mind of an ongoing dysregulated ticking bomb, your brain, just for the sake of trying to find a way to preserve a sense of balance, will start to create all kinds of pathways and scenarios to keep the peace as best it possibly can. If that goes on for long enough, then suddenly the self-blame for not being able to contain or maintain the peace of the situation becomes scrupulosity. It's my fault that this person, threw a TV out the window, or it's my fault that this person, is a wreck and they're not putting their life together because I'm not lifting them up well enough, or it's my fault I am in a situation, it's my fault, etc., etc., etc. And those kinds of things can wear on a person. That can really warp a person's brain and their perspective of ethics. You may find that, yeah, sometimes you can go into spaces in the online world and in the spiritual world where it's almost like people are trying to impose scrupulosity onto you, trying to get you to maybe even aspect some qualities of scrupulosity. Morals and ethics used as a bludgeoning tool, that is nothing new, right? That's been probably going on since as long as human beings have decided to invent rules, belief systems, and systems of order to maintain a sense of society, which weirdly enough goes against the law of equivalent exchange, right? It's disproportionate. It's unbalanced. It's not fair. It's not the right target. It's not the right amount. It's not the right vibration. But it can screw you up really, really badly. You might decide that because of your scrupulosity, you might stay at a job that you hate or that keeps you in a space of economic suffering because you want to be loyal to the business, or you have an attachment to the boss or the environment. You may suffer or endure a lot of family problems and family abuse because they have problems that you need to forgive. You are supposed to be perfect, so you are unforgivable for having your own challenges. You may stay in a relationship out of guilt or a feeling of responsibility because of maybe mistakes you made in the past, maybe mistakes you didn't really make in the past. Maybe scrupulosity isn't really very good for you being able to tell whether or not you did anything wrong or all that wrong or worthy of what you've gone through. I had a very interesting situation actually come up recently where my own sort of scrupulosity, so to speak, really got a hold of me for a good while. And I think that there was more going on in that situation. It was a family space. There was a family member there that I maybe spoke two words to the whole time, and there's a lot of ick in that particular situation. And I was already under a large amount of stress. But during the course of the interaction, there was a lot of negativity going on in the space, and I had taken some space. I'd walked away from the gathering, so to speak, to just kind of go outside and take a breath. And I went out with another relative and his girlfriend, and we were just kind of talking and hanging out. And I was starting to talk a lot. I really wanted to open up. And the stories that we were kind of talking through and all of that eventually got on to a track where I really needed to open up about something. And I was talking about a circumstance with somebody that I really care about. And I ended up, well, telling a story that was actually a lie. It was not true. The way I was describing the story, the people I was talking about, all of that. But I was telling something that was dishonest. And I knew I was doing it. But it felt weirdly good to be able to talk about the topic. And I couldn't really stop myself. And so for like 2 minutes, I was telling this sort of rattling on, rattling on, rattling on. And I felt really, really bad about it. Really, really bad about it. Now, scrupulosity around honesty is kind of a big deal to me, but it's also been toxically reinforced by people around me, to the point where I can tolerate other people telling white lies. I can tolerate other people telling tall tales. I can tolerate people even covering for each other. But when I do it, then I need to be just taken out into the street and shot. That's the feeling that I was getting over the course of that experience. And it's weird because in that moment, I knew I did something wrong. And then for about 10 more minutes, I felt racked with guilt, just racked with anxiety about what was happening there. And I could tell there was something else going on I could feel like something kind of latching onto me, whether it was a thought form or an energy form or an entity that was kind of really enjoying, that anxiety energy, really enjoying that, that guilt, really enjoying the sort of negative emotions that were flowing through my field as I was going through that. And it was kind of amping things up even higher, in kind of like a parasitic sadism. I was aware that something was there, but I was also aware that within me there was obviously a belief that I had, committed some kind of mortal sin. And so I actually took the person I was talking to aside later on, and I'm like, I just got to tell you this right now. I got that all wrong. That's not what happened. That's not right at all. And I had to kind of get that off my chest. I still didn't feel any better, and I was just kind of racked. Over the course of the evening, I started to feel worse and worse and worse. And even after I got home, I was almost like trying to put myself in a deposition kind of situation. Even with, I was talking to people, texting people like, hey, so this is what I'm going through. I did a bad thing. I'm so bad. Oh my God, I can't believe I said this. And it was sort of like I need to somehow purge this horrible, defilement that I have made around myself. And it was kind of strange because I couldn't let myself accept just the responsibility for my part in what I said, because I was the only one who had a part in what I said. I wanted to know everything was either A, going to be okay, or B, that I would at least be punished so that I wouldn't get away with it. And that's not a good thing to do in a situation where we're talking about, look, you told a story. It made a belief happen, but not even a belief that's really like damning or harming to anybody's character. It makes you look like an idiot, and it makes you look like somebody who could be a bit of a flake, but it's not making anyone look bad. It's not hurting anybody's character. It's not an assassination of anyone's character. You're being fucked with. And you've got a lot of stuff you need to work out here because one, yeah, you've still got some healing to do because you did grow up with a lot of people who, abused you because they were the traumatized ones with their, betrayal issues and their up and downs and their splitting, or the trauma of also, growing up with people who are emotionally and socially not fluent. And having that in a combination can mess with you, but also at the same time, something is messing with you. And so I kind of had to go through this moment of feeling a little bit like, do I deserve to go easy on myself? You ran your mouth, and you shouldn't have ran your mouth, right? Again, we're violating equivalent exchange. This is not an equivalent exchange. And anyone who says, well, you told a story that wasn't true, so you deserve to be taken out on the street and shot, is not somebody who actually understands equivalent exchange and is probably living in constant violation of alchemical balance all the time, right? Disproportion is a huge violation of alchemical balance. And so imagine the shitstorm that is, walking around in that, kind of reality. But for myself, I could not bring myself to even consider that maybe everything would be okay or I was okay. But I kind of gave myself a bit of an interesting opportunity to game through by, weirdly enough, leaning into the scrupulosity and leaning out at the same time. And so the way I kind of worked my way through it was, okay, I know I'm not going to forgive myself right this instant, but I also know that I'm not the only person who's ever gone through something like this. And so maybe if I can send something nice to somebody who has gone through something like this before, I can remind my brain what real love is. And so what I did was I actually reached out to somebody and I sent them a text, and all I said was, I don't care what you did to get through life to get here. and in my life, but I am so grateful you did. And I sent it off. And I sent it to somebody that I do have a very, very strong soul link with. It definitely is on that, sort of twin soul level. It definitely is on that twin soul level. And so I was also well aware of the fact that, like, look, if I'm going through this, you got to be going through something like this too. And so, weirdly enough, sending that out there, not with the expectation of a relay, but just to kind of, if you're going through this, don't. That's all I wanted to do. Kind of got my brain to go, how would I advocate for this person? How would I go to war for this person? How would I grab my hammer and go to war for this person? And then I go, wait, perfect. Take every argument that you make as an excuse to go to war. And even if you can't go to war for yourself in this instance, at least use the why to game through your scrupulosity moment. It was an opportunity to kind of turn that sense of fairness on myself for the first time, probably in a very, very long time. I don't know why I needed to share this right now. Originally, this was supposed to be about scrupulosity. But maybe a portrait of scrupulosity would be good. Maybe I could also turn it into a bit of a lesson for you all too. So you take care. And I hope that those of you who may be dealing with scrupulosity or maybe your own OCD can give yourselves a bit of a break. I say you can take a break. Again, it's all about remembering you can and you can. It's not you can, I can't. So y'all take care. I'm going to close it up now. Have a good one.